the heartland of America, the gateway to the West. This is Engineering Tomorrow, the podcast, keeping you entertained and in the know on the latest commercial and industrial heating, cooling, and water treatment technologies.
Welcome to another episode of Engineering Tomorrow. I'm your host, Joe Rogan. Just joking. Brian Gomsky again. And we have a very special show today. We have flown in some of the top VRF experts in the world to be right here today in our studio. We are live with Alan Clayton and Sam Heilbronner, and we are going to go over all things VRF and all things Hitachi VRF. First thing, guys, welcome to the show. Please take a minute and introduce yourselves.
I'm Alan Clayton, Regional Account Manager from Hitachi. Brian, great to see you again. Sam, great to finally meet you in person. Looking very much forward to this podcast and kind of seeing what the reaction is.
I'm Sam Heilbronner. I'm Midwest Machinery's VRF specialist. I have about 6 years of experience in the VRF industry with both some positives and negatives to that. Looking forward to diving into Hitachi VRF, and thanks for having me on the show, Brian.
Great to both have you here. We're going to just dive right into it. And again, this show is for experienced people. It's for people still in college and everywhere in between. So let's just start with the very basics is what is VRF and how does it work?
So VRF stands for Variable Refrigerant Flow. It's a whole system and series of connected indoor fan coils as well as condensing units. There's a couple different flavors of VRF systems. There's both heat recovery, which allows simultaneous heating and cooling at each particular fan coil, as well as heat pump systems, which is an all heating or cooling system. There's also a couple different ways to reject your heat and absorb heat in this system. We could utilize air source equipment, which is typically on grade or on roof. It could also be even housed indoors. My personal favorite flavor is the water source product, which is typically found inside and either hooked to a cooling tower and boiler, traditional condensing loop, or you could even do a geothermal application.
Alan, does that sound about right?
Yes, it does. I was just sitting here in awe. I've never actually met a VRF ninja before, so it's good to finally meet Sam in person and have him here.
Very good. So we kind of established at a high level what VRF is. How does it work specifically?
So VRF is, as I alluded to before, called Variable Refrigerant Flow. And what makes it unique is that each component or each fan coil in a VRF system has an electronic expansion valve. And what that valve does is it allows a very precise amount of refrigerant flow to each one of those units. The outdoor unit or the water source unit typically monitors all the indoor units and will adjust the speed of its compressor as well as its fan to control head pressure and other pressures within the system.
So it's not, it never really, is this accurate? It doesn't really modulate the air at the cassettes. It's modulating the refrigeration.
That's correct. Yes. The airflow is typically fixed. It does have, low, medium, high speed settings as well as adjustable static capabilities. But the key energy savings and play with this equipment is the variable refrigerant flow.
And what types of heating and cooling are available? I mean, is the whole building have to be hot or cold? Can you mix it up? How does that work?
Yeah, like I said before, there's heat recovery systems, which is going to be a heating and cooling system simultaneously. The real advantage to that system is that, if you have one unit in cooling, it's going to send its rejected hot gas not to a compressor or not to the outdoor unit like it would in a typical one-to-one system, but it might send its hot gas to another unit calling for heating, which is where it has the energy savings. You're not overworking your compressor or your fan outside.
What do you typically see in terms of typical installation? Are most of these installations doing simultaneous heating and cooling? Is it changing over time? Like how is that trend going?
So the really nice thing about VRF systems is that they're super flexible. So the ideal installation isn't limited to one instance or application. I've seen VRF systems applied to Class A office buildings, to universities and institutional work, hotel retrofits, hospitality, even religious buildings, great for retrofitting areas that may or may not need heating or cooling.
Okay. You kind of segued right into the next question, which is ideal installations for VRF. Do you have any notable projects maybe that you could go over, or in terms of what's a unique application you've done?
I've been involved in a couple of different projects. One of the largest ones I was involved in was retrofitting a Marriott. It involved completely swapping out their existing system for 22 VRF systems with about 320 fan coils. In order to provide a safety for heating, we outfitted those fan coils with backup electric heat that would only operate when necessary. So the owner was very pleased, and the hotel hasn't had any issues I know of to date.
Great. I think compared to some HVAC technologies, I think personally I would consider VRF a newer technology. And I think because it's newer, there are certain myths and mystique within VRF that you hear all the time. What are some of those myths that are just simply not true about VRF?
Well, I'm going to start with a couple, but I might deflect to Alan here to see what he's heard in his time. We get a lot of myths about, heating capabilities of VRF systems, and there's actually a lot of ways to tackle providing ample heat in your space. Like I said before, my personal favorite is water source. You kind of get the benefit of both worlds, where you have a condenser water system, and you can have almost double heat recovery, where you might have a module working in heating, you might have a module working in cooling. Well, those two are offsetting in the condenser water loop, and your tower or boiler should be non-operational at that point. And then with the heat recovery refrigerant side, you obviously get the energy saving there as well. I've also seen installations with backup electric heat, oversizing condensing units to account for some heating loss, as well as a doghouse design where you actually locate your air source condensing units maybe in a garage or on a rooftop penthouse. Alan, have you seen any more myths that you've been accustomed to in your time with VRF?
Yeah, I'd say maybe the number one. I'd say maybe the top two myths that I see. Number one, maybe that it's just too expensive. People always, and I don't know if this is just industry propaganda, but there's this myth out there that variable refrigerant flow is totally out of whack with other sorts of equipment styles for the particular buildings that we're looking at. And it's just not true. I mean, in case after case, we've sat in contractors' offices, we've sat with engineers and come up with really good solutions, be it VRF layouts or some sort of value engineering proposition that really leave the customer with a big smile on their face. I'd say probably the number two myth, Brian, that we're facing is that VRF is very complicated. It's actually a very simple system when you really zoom out and think about it.
Yep.
Have you ever tried to install a chiller boiler? I mean, it's not
right. Yeah.
not the easiest thing in the world. So to answer your question, I think those are the two myths that I have seen.
I mean, I think this is oversimplifying it, but it really is Lego pieces. You're matching the Lego pieces together, and you're building it that way. It's not as complicated as it is made to seem. I've been to different markets that we have representation in, and I've heard a lot of questions. I know people sometimes worry about refrigeration. Can you guys talk about refrigeration as it is to VRF and refrigeration leaks?
Great question, Brian. I'm actually glad you brought that up. So it seems like in every meeting and maybe even every other journal I read, I hear something about the dangers of VRF as it pertains to refrigeration leaks. In my experience, and I've been here for a while now, both in the industry and with Hitachi, specifically on VRF, I've not seen that ever come up as a major concern on an actual job site. So I'd kind of like to dispel that, just for the crowd out there here now.
And if I can piggyback off of that, it really comes down to working hand in hand with your contractor, and that's where I've found a lot of my success. And looking forward to the success here with Midwest Machinery is, making sure the contractor's educated, that they're purging nitrogen, that they're making clean brazes, keeping that system really airtight. The triple evacuation process, as well as pressure testing, is going to be our crutch for detecting leaks in the system before we fully charge that system. So as long as, we're holding that charge and we get that system really clean, you can feel confident about the leak potential being low.
I mean, it's really like anything. You do it right, you install it correctly, and you have nothing to worry about. You take a car and you don't put on the lug nuts right, the wheel's going to fall off going down the highway. So even if, you do it wrong, you could have problems. You do it right, absolutely no problems. That's why you partner with people who know what they're doing, and then you don't have anything to worry about.
And I liked your analogy earlier about Legos. I mean, if you follow the directions, it's very hard to mess that up.
Yep.
So I think in our next joint sales meeting together, we're going to definitely bring some Legos to demonstrate.
There we go, absolutely. Let's segue into the market itself. I had mentioned previously VRF somewhat newer. How big do you know is the VRF market currently, and what projections are we seeing in the next 2, 5, 10 years?
So the numbers that I've seen, and we were actually just talking about this at lunch, about $11 billion globally for VRF as of 2015.
Wow.
In the next couple of years, that's projected to go up to $30 billion. So I don't know about you, but that, to me, when I think about that growth curve, I think about a hockey stick, because that is straight up. It's a product people just can't get enough of, and I'm sure that as we, especially in America, begin to adopt it like it's been adopted everywhere else, that growth is just going to continue to occur.
Yeah, I agree with that, Alan. For those of you who don't know, VRF is a very popular technology overseas. About 80% of construction overseas typically has a VRF system, especially prevalent in the Asian markets as well. The American market is very young in its VRF exploration. It's probably around 5 to 6% of the market right now, but as Alan alluded to before, there's a lot of untapped potential for VRF and the applications in America.
Sam, I know you have to run and catch a plane and get back to even more VRF and working on projects. So I want to thank you for coming. Stick around, folks, because we're going to talk more VRF. But Sam, I look forward to having you on many more times in the future to discuss all things VRF.
Appreciate it, Brian. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your time, Alan, and looking forward to be back on the show.
All right, so we've been discussing all things VRF at a high level. Let's talk specifically about Hitachi VRF. Alan, tell us a little bit about Hitachi. When did they come to market? And let's start there.
So our very first generation of VRF was in the early 80s, actually. So about the same time Michael Jackson was making Thriller, we were putting in VRF project overseas. So we are not new to this game. We're actually one of the originators, because we're the first to implement and put the scroll compressor into an air conditioning system. So that is definitely something that I don't think a lot of people know, but it is true. As it sits right now, we're a top 3 manufacturer globally in VRF, and we only expect that to grow. So we've been doing great things, growing leaps and bounds by partnering with great people like Midwest Machinery.
In VRF, I know the outdoor units everyone's big about what generation you're on and how many iterations. Since inception, what generation are you guys on globally and then in the United States?
Great question. So our branding is a little bit confusing because we've been telling people that we're on Generation 2. That's actually kind of misleading because if you look back from the origination back in the 80s, this is actually our 8th generation right now that we're on. So we've definitely been a company that prides itself not only on originating but also innovating. We've been cultivating this product line for the last 30 years. And a lot of that comes from, the feedback that we get from our customers, the feedback we get from their customers, and just putting what works into effect and getting rid of the things that don't. And that really is why our product line is so strong.
Some people may not know this, but Johnson Controls has recently joined forces with Hitachi. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So Hitachi, as I stated before, top 3 manufacturer in the world for VRF, so huge player, especially in markets like Taiwan and Japan. In 2015, Hitachi and Johnson Controls joined forces and has created what we now have in the U.S. So it's been, a beautiful relationship. I mean, when you partner with somebody like Johnson Controls or Hitachi, it's like partnering with Nike or Apple. No matter where you go, you're with a household name. You have a great company with incredible resources and a track record of success through the years and instant credibility. I'd say one more thing about Hitachi and Johnson Controls that has really worked well as a result of this partnership. Both companies are really focused on air conditioning. The primary business isn't cars or televisions or cell phones. HVAC is the number one priority far and away, and we run it like a business.
For the market, for the customers, why Hitachi VRF? What's in it for the end user? What's in it for the contractors? Why Hitachi? Why now?
Another great question. And I think a lot of that lies in the heart of us focusing really on the customer experience. No matter what we do, we always try to sell the solution, not the product. So in every sales call that we go on or everything that we teach our reps, it's always about selling the solution and not necessarily focusing on a line card. I was actually with a contractor who said something that kind of blew me away. He said, I buy millions of dollars of equipment. Never have I purchased based on a SEER rating. And I think that plays very well into our approach with business and how we work really not only on the equipment itself, but everything else around it. As I stated before, we're on our 8th generation of products right now as a company. So a lot of that is because the market over the years has dictated many of the changes in our product line, as well as some of the logistical things that we've done. All the kinks are really ironed out right now. We have a lot of great programs for contractors and end users and developers and owners to take part of. And I think that just feeds more into Hitachi's vision and Hitachi's focus on making sure the customer experience is great.
Another thing about Hitachi from my perspective is how accessible it is to access the engineers at Hitachi, get that expertise on the phone quickly and get questions answered. I think that's truly phenomenal. You don't see that very often in big companies of that size. Normally you have to go through, support tickets and many layers. The one thing that's truly great is the support that you guys have come up with over at Hitachi.
Everybody on our team, is doing amazing things. Our headquarters for Hitachi North America is in Dallas. So everybody on our inside sales team, our tech support team, our customer service team, our regional technical managers, just everybody up and down, plays right into that. And that's one of the things that when we're on the job sites with customers, they always come back to us and say, hey, I can call somebody, I get somebody on the phone, I'm not on hold for 30 minutes for a simple answer to my question. And again, the strong command that we have of logistics, especially here in St. Louis with our shipping point being just in Memphis, Tennessee, goes a long way in helping, solve problems quickly and get parts in people's hands quickly when they need them. So we definitely put a lot of stock in that experience.
Yes, I've been to your headquarters. I've met a lot of your team, and I think the first word that comes to mind for me is passion. I've not seen a single person that is not full of passion for Hitachi. It's truly amazing. One thing that you did touch on, and that thank you for reminding me, is your distribution hub in Tennessee. And I think that's fantastic that it's centrally located in the Midwest, especially for the Midwest region, of being able to get orders and parts very quickly. Tell me a little bit more about your Tennessee facility?
Great question. So we have actually, as a company, 7 different manufacturing facilities around the world. So very, very diverse manufacturing footprint everywhere from Spain, Japan, you name it. And quick side note, we move a ton of product in and out of our warehouse. I mean, it just flies off the shelf sometimes. So that the growth of our company did not happen because, we miss delivery dates or we give long lead times, because customers definitely remember that. So that is a good thing to bring up, because it's really easy and it's not a hassle to get parts when you need them. We have, our great customer service team and a lot of logistical support to make things happen when they need to happen. So obviously it's even better for ductless splits because, a lot of our reps are starting to show interest in stocking that product.
So I've tried to pull some info out of you in the past, but you've got your tight-lipped on this. But maybe you can give us some hints on what is coming ahead for Hitachi in the future years.
We have a lot of big things on the horizon. I'll just say that. And I know that probably some of our competitors are listening, so I don't want to divulge too many details. But
all right. You heard it here, so
Brian, do you remember the solar eclipse a couple of years ago?
I do, yes.
This is going to be like that on steroids.
Oh, my gosh. All right.
When we announce, I hope you're holding on to something. I'll just say that.
Alan, I want to thank you for coming in and being on the podcast today. Midwest Machinery is very excited to be part of VRF. We've got the right team internally. We've got the right VRF manufacturer. And we are looking to make some waves moving forward.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to doing another one of these with you.
Absolutely. We will have you on again. Thank you for listening, and keep engineering for tomorrow today.
You've been listening to Engineering Tomorrow, the podcast. For more insights and downloadable content, please visit our website at www.engineeringtomorrow.blog. Until next time, engineer for tomorrow, today.